We are the one, the light in the dark. One heart, one world, one spark. We are the one, together we rise. One dream, one voice, one sky.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Women Empowered Across the World. And this is our podcast. And this is episode 28, guys. 28. And we have the pleasure and privilege of somebody that is near and dear to my heart, has been in my life for a very long time. And her name is Novella Williams, and she's going to come and inspire every one of us with her life and her highlights of what she has been up to in her life. Novella, come join us.
Well, hello, and thank you so much for inviting me. It's wonderful. I'm so grateful. And just after coming off of the Thanksgiving week and weekend, it just really presents me to how fortunate we are to be alive and in this time, in this period.
Yeah.
So now I'm not sure about the format of this. Should I just continue to talk, or
Yep.
would you guys,
Share
are
your
you?
story with us. I started at 9 years old. Where are you starting?
Well, well, my name is Novella, right? And a lot of people ask me about my name, so I guess I can start there. Um, my mother named me after an ex-girlfriend of my father's. And it's interesting because my mother's an awesome negotiator, and I always wonder what she got for that, right? But I have a lot of things that's happened in my life, and so it's like uh, a lot of people will come through and they'll say, "Oh, in Spanish, do you know what your name is?" Or in Italian, and people will come up and ask me. Well, in American dictionary means short novel. And in Italian, it means little book. And in French, they say it's a little new. And in Spanish, soap opera. Pretty much the story of my life. So um, I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and from a very modest family. I'd say, underprivileged. And we went through a lot of things. And it all of the while in Detroit, I always felt that there was something. I'm not quite sure exactly what, but I knew there was something within me. And I used to say a lot. I'd say, um, I don't want to be a preacher. I don't want to because I cuss too much and I like to drink. That was my standard saying. And then one day somebody said, "Well, who asked you? Why do you keep saying that?" And I said, "Well, don't you feel like that?" And they're like, "No, I've never had that thought." So I got that there was something that was calling me that I didn't know, that I thought that everybody had that experience. And so I know that I have a deep spirituality. I'm not somebody that's like a holy roller or anything like that, but I do know that I've always sought out ways for people to be equal and to live together in harmony. That was my thing. And it was not until I became a Buddhist at a young age. Well, I say young, I was in my 20s. And I also, my family was raised Baptist, and my mother, she put us in a Catholic school. And a lot of our friends were Jewish, and we went to temples and things like that. So I had a very rounded background inside of the different religions. And but when I bumped into Buddhism, one thing about it, what that I really loved was that life was cause and effect. And whatever you put into it is what you get back out of it. And I took that on wholeheartedly. I wasn't a very nice person. I knew it. And the first thing that in one of the practices in my religion is chanting. And I chanted to become a better person. There were a lot of people that were chanting for a lot of things, but that's what I chanted for because I was somebody that I'd wake up in the morning time because I would have said something that was really offhand to somebody and I felt really bad the next day. And I would look at myself and call my own self a B. Okay. And so I did not like myself. And so I wanted to become a better person. And so over the years, that's what I did. I worked towards that, and I did a lot of work within the community. I got involved with the mayor's office, and so I got involved in politics. Then I did this training program, and the world opened up because I had an opportunity to see that here I was, a big in that small place, I was a big person. However, I was operating as if I was, I had an anchor. But it was just like an elephant. You have a baby elephant and you put a stake in the ground and it thinks that it can only go so far. But I had grown, especially inside of everything that I had done, and I still was anchored there, not knowing that all I had to do was just move my foot, move. And that's what I did. And then I moved to Florida and the world opened up. And so many different things occurred when I moved to Florida. One of the things is that I became introduced to a group of women who they were practicing creative visualizations. It was this book, and it was all about visualizing things and creating it, right? And I thought that was pretty interesting. But let me back up a little bit. One of the things with this training program was that for the first time in my life, I was always a go-getter. I was always the only woman or the only black that was in a particular something, right? And when I did this training program, all of a sudden I was put in the community of not just me being one, but a lot of people that were go-getters. And whereas in the past, with the different cultures, I lived in a very segregated community where, it was I was with and all inside of my black culture, and even though I went to work with and I dealt with people in a different culture, I didn't have personal relationships where they came over to my house and hung out and watched TV and all of that. None of that, right? And so I had a particular listening. I felt that, yeah, we have to get this. This is in 1992. I felt like, that white people felt that this is the way the world should be, and that, they were superior to us, and we had to fight for ourselves, and that's the way that they wanted it. And in this training program, I got to see that, oh, wait a second, these people are like me. Wait a minute. And it began, my mind opened up. And I began the inquiry. Okay. And so every time I met a person that was of that color, I was like, okay, I sat down, had a conversation, didn't matter, it was on bus, planes, whatever. And so I grew. And so by the time I moved to Florida, I had really had this huge listening of all people, not just, people in my culture like that, right? But then you got to I moved in Southern Florida, and I'm walking around talking about, what black people and white people and blah, blah, blah. And people were like, like, what is she, she must be racist because she's saying black, she's saying white, when it was like, and I don't know, not politically correct to say it, I don't know. But anyway, it gave me the world because people began to start noticing me as somebody that they could go to and talk to inside of the conversation of diversity.
Mm.
And so I became a coach in 1994, 96. Somebody challenged me. They said, "You're really good at this. You're really good at talking to people. I believe that you'll make a good coach." And I started coaching, coupled with the whole thing with visualization and creating. I actually managed to get a contract with Disney the first 3 months that I was working. Okay. Now, they have this book that came out that's called The Imposter Syndrome. Okay. Now, they didn't have it back then. And I'm going to tell you, I had imposter syndrome so bad because 1994, there was no thing called coach. We created that. There was no life coach. Dr. Phil made that, a popular. But at that time, I created myself as an empowerment coach. Went into Disney, And I could tell you a story. Let me look at the time. Now, how long do I have here?
You, you have about 9 more minutes.
Okay, good. So really, uh, this happened because I was in an inquiry about greatness. We had been having a conversation about greatness, and I was like, well, can people actually be great? What is this thing? The mayor, I was working with the mayor of Orlando at the time. I was on a diversity team, her diversity team. And as the mayor, she would get these invites from Disney, and they would bring in speakers for their executives, and they would offer invites to the mayor. And so she invited her team of diversity people, in which I was one. And so we go, and guess who the speaker was? Maya Angelou. So I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I got to say something to her. I want to say something to her, right? And so when we get in here, uh, just like people, nobody wanted to sit in the first two rows because, I don't know, guess too scared or whatever. And so I asked, I said, why is no one in the first row? Because I was thinking maybe it was for dignitary. She said, oh, nobody wants to sit there. And I said, can we sit? Yeah. So we're in the front row, right? And so Maya Angelou, she's speaking. She's awesome. She's talking about how she, created her own life. She orchestrated. She talked about how she had gotten raped as a young kid and how she had stopped speaking and she for a number of years. And then she talked about her grandmother and how her grandmother, took care of her. And so as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, I got to ask her a question, and if you've ever done that, you know that that's all you can hear. You can't hear the person, what they're talking about. And so I said, okay, I'm going to listen to her. I'm just going to, if she calls on my name, I'm just going to ask her whatever. So finally, she ends her speech. She starts asking questions. I have my hand up. She calls on me, and I don't know she's called on me. And she says, yes, you have your hand up. So I stood up and I didn't know what to say. And then all of a sudden I said, well, I'm looking at you, and you're a black woman just like me. And I'm sure you went to work, came home, washed the dishes, you know, uh, kicked the dog, did whatever the kids crying, whatever. I said, was there some moment in your own life that you um, really discovered? Oh, I know. Here's what I asked her. I said, at first I acknowledged her. I said, I'm sitting here on the edge of my seat. And as you're speaking, your words are filling me up so much that I feel like I'm on the verge of crying. And I said, somebody told me one time that if you feel like crying and there's no reason, like you're not happy, you're not sad, it's none of that, they said that's because you're in the presence of greatness. And I shared that with her. And then I said, and then I said, went into that thing about, her being like me. And I said, was there some moment that you recognized your own greatness? And she went on to tell me about that story about being raped and all of that. And then she said, I stopped speaking because I thought if I told anybody that something would happen to if I spoke that, if you know the story. And then she went on to say, what I discovered was that greatness comes with the power of words. Because she explained how her grandmother would sit on the porch and comb her hair and would tell her, that's all right, honey, you don't have to say anything because you have words inside of you, and the Lord has a special mission for you. And then she talked about all of the degrees she has and everything that and in that moment when she walked off the stage, I was so like happy. I just walked up to her and hugged her. And then when I did that, all of the people, these are Disney executives, okay? They started coming up to me, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? That's how I got the gig at Disney because I started passing out my cards. They didn't know who I was. I was telling them I was a coach. They were like, "Ooh, this is a new thing that's happening." And I became involved. But like I say, imposter syndrome, pretty soon I was getting all of this money and I kept thinking to myself, oh my God, somebody's going to find out I don't know what I'm doing. There was no books, there were no courses, there was none of that. And so that is exactly what happened. But, throughout the years, I've created many things for myself, and I am clear that the power of words is exactly what there is. Now, when we began, and 4 years ago, when we went through our election, I got together with a few of my friends, and we created something that's called Brag. And it's boldly restoring America's goodness, because our conversations were so poor in this, American culture that we have. And then we started, and what we did was we walked around and we asked people, what do you love about being an American? What do you love about America? And we wanted to put positive words, and instead of like, because when you're speaking, people don't realize that words create. And the more you're saying negativity, you're creating the negativity. And so that was the goal, right? To do that. And then 4 years later, didn't really make it be big. I didn't do what was necessary to alter myself to have it grow larger. But now, I recently, about a month or so ago, I was so discouraged myself. I didn't want to say anything good. I was, like listening to everybody else's sad stories and all of that. And then I decided to myself, you know what? No, no, I can't do this. So I'm a verbal healing specialist, and I speak to people one on one, and having them to look at their lives and forgive their past and create a future for themselves. And now I'm taking it to the next level. It's not about a one-on-one. It's not just about me. It's about all of us. And it's not just about America. It's about the world. Because we all have issues. We all have problems. And so, you know, I'm giving up being a little me, and I am expanding myself. I'm extending myself. And this is no coincidence that I am here, and I'm looking at all of these powerful women that are here, and you guys are speaking my language. You're like, I'm like, oh my God, listen to them. These are my people. So, thank you so much for having me here and for inviting me and
Ah,
introducing me to these fabulous people, Carol.
Novella. You you just really seriously, you just bring so much. When you come into a room, you bring so much with you. I just call her magical, guys. You want magic in your life? Bring Novella. She will open that door. Novella, thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast. And I know we have some questions. So one of my questions is this. I know you wrote this book, and I want to know, how in the world did you actually come up with that title? Guys, wait till she shares the title with you. How did you come up with that novella?
What's called F that.
F that, guys.
Yeah, because sometimes you just like, F that and
Mhm.
um forgive.
That's what the F stands for, guys.
What did you think it meant? And that's the subtitle of the book. Of that. Forgive, of course. What did you think it meant?
So how did you come up with that title?
Well, it was pretty much that. I was going to say, because I was tired of, you know, um, talking to these people, and people, listen, years ago, I went through a whole year. I did this training course, and I did seminars a lot, workshops. And there was a portion of the workshop that I did, and it was a forgiveness portion. And I was just about to go to Peru. I was leading some workshops in Peru. And I said, you know what? I'm going to create a forgiveness workshop and see how that works out. So I created this little workshop. I took it over to Peru, and these people, and they were falling out. They were having transformation. I was like, whoa, it's something to this forgiveness stuff. And then I came back home, and when I kept thinking about it, and I said, well, you know what? Let me see. I'm going to do it for myself. And I went through the areas of my life. I wrote them all down. And then each month I would go through and I would pick an area. and I would forgive everything I possibly could about it, right? So like romance, I went through like every single the first boy I kissed, whoever, like cheated on me, that I cheated on, every person that I could think of, and I just forgave me, forgave them. And I went through, and it was really remarkable because out of that, what I discovered about myself, because my friends were getting freaky. They were like, I don't know what's wrong with you. I don't like who you're being. And and for me, I was just kind of laughing because I was feeling good about it. But they were like, I don't like this person. And I saw that what it was that for some reason, because of my past, I was always apologizing. I walked into the room apologetic, like apologizing for just being me, for my background, for who I used to be, for how horrible I used to be. I think that that's what it was, just apologizing and forgiving myself. That apologetic nature went away. So it was like they didn't know how to interact with me. It was different. Not that it was bad, good, or anything, but when you've known somebody for so many years and they've been a particular way, then all of a sudden they're not that way. It was uncomfortable. And so I could see how extraordinary forgiveness was. And that was the beginning of my journey.
For the record, I love who you are.
Thank you.
I love who you are. Okay, guys. Okay, Susie has her hand up. Go ahead, Susie.
So first of all, thank you so much, Novella, for speaking up. There is so many deep things you actually said that actually help a lot of people on this podcast. You talked about mindset and you talked about declaration that declaring what you want is very important. So I want to focus on one thing, that is mindset. And you said before, when your mindset about like people of that are not of your color was that the white people actually, they just want to take from us. They really don't like us till
Mhm.
you stand up to that place of openness and conversation. I asked this question because me, when I came to the US, I actually discovered that I could not like, it's not about the person calling me. I had no problem because I have a lot of friends that are actually my whole family. It turns to be white. I have no problem with that. But I had a lot of friends at school that were not friends, people at school that were of color that barely could speak to the opposite gender, to the not the gender, the opposite race or something like that. And it was just so strange and that mindset. So what can you tell most people that have the same mindset on how can they free themselves from that bondage? Because in long term, I can see that it's a bondage because the people can help you. And even in the situation you can collaborate and make the world a better place, but they stay in this restricted mindset of what they were told about what was told to them about the opposite race. So what can you tell them? Because it's really interesting. I love that so much.
Well, that is an excellent question. And it's a question that I engage in all the time. Um, I look at myself, and it was a series of things that I went through, step by step. But the bottom line is, it's me. It's me. It's no one else, because there's no one else over there. The only thing over there is my interpretation of you, whoever you are. And so that's why, you could have someone, say a coworker or whatever, and that coworker gets along with wonderfully with everyone else, but they may not get along well with you. That's because of your interpretation of them. Maybe the other people have a different interpretation. And so, I'll tell you, it's really that's a question I engage in a lot, Susie. I have to tell you. But I do say that you have to start with yourself and forgiving yourself. And it doesn't end with color. There's also men. Sometimes women we've been in a culture where men have been dominant, and it's kind of difficult to see it any other way than that, especially when we're looking at it and we see evidence of it. Now, we see evidence of it, but that's just the evidence that we're creating. It could be that this person is just responding because that's how they always respond, and that's what, and they don't even understand what's going on. Most men are clueless anyway, because they don't know what's happening because they've lived in this bubble and this paradigm, forever. And so when you live in a paradigm, you don't realize that that's what you're doing. You say mindset, but if it's just like if just like if fish were swimming around in the water and they're swimming around in murky, nasty, dirty water, they don't know that. Because you're just swimming around, you're just doing what you're doing. However, if somebody comes along, picks you up and looks you and say, "Hey, look, this is the water you're swimming in." It's kind of like, oh, now you have a chance to look at it and actually, do something about it if you can. But it's kind of difficult, and it's difficult without conversation. And so that's one of the things is really just having conversations with other people because that was my journey. My journey was to have lots of conversations with people.
You
Wow.
know, beautiful. Novella, you are somebody that doesn't settle in life. Like you, even when you have the answer, you just keep looking because there may be more. That's who you are for me, is you don't settle in life. You fully engage in life. And I love that about you. I love that about you. And it's opened many doors for you being that. All right. Megan, she has her hand up.
Thank you, Carol. Novella, thank you so much for sharing with us. I absolutely related to so many parts of your story. So thank you. And I love the fact that you actually got to meet and speak with Maya Angelou. That's absolutely a beautiful moment right there. Um, I'm taking this from my perspective, and in terms of our audience, our ladies watching us, I love the fact that we can reinvent ourselves as often as we want. I absolutely love that concept. And for me, as an almost 50-year-old woman, it is something that I very recently discovered. You always used to do it, or I used to do it very much under wraps. And so when I did something new, I wanted to change my hairstyle, it was always a very under the radar type of thing, right? And since I've been operating in this space and doing what I really love to do, following my passions, it's like, let's do something different today. So, it just comes as part of your growth and your evolution in your space. So what is it that you'd like to say to our audience, to our ladies that watch this, in terms of reinventing yourself? How does it happen for you? And you mentioned imposter syndrome earlier, which all of us, have it as a best friend at some point, or a very close friend, should I say, at some point in our lives, many times. What would you say to our audience, our ladies watching, just in terms of the power of being able to reinvent yourself at your whim?
Well, I would say thank you so much. That's really awesome, Megan. You guys are coming up with some good stuff. um, First, I want to say something to Carol. Carol, I thank you for that acknowledgement. Okay, and I also want to say that there is there's the two parts, just like the imposter syndrome, right? You can say all of this wonderful stuff to me, and it's kind of like, like, wow, that's really great. And I also know that there's moments that I don't do that. There are things that I do settle, and then I can tend to beat myself up about it, right? Now, I'm not somebody to beat myself up because if I hear it, I'm going to stop. And that's what I want to say, Megan, in regards to women, that at first you have to notice it, that you have to really get that this is what you're doing. This is where you are. You have to be with it. You have to embrace it. It's not about running away from it. It's not about ignoring it. It's not about putting on something pretty and doing something else and covering it up. It's not that. It's really just sitting down with you and taking a long, hard look at yourself. And then apologizing to yourself for taking yourself through everything that you've been through.
Mm.
Now, the moment that you say, somebody did this to me and he did that to me or she did that or blah, 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 you're giving your power away to someone else.
Yeah.
And so if you claim it all yourself and you say, okay, this is me, this was my interpretation, and I forgive myself. I love myself. I love you, Novella. I am so sorry that that happened. Hug yourself, love yourself, take care of yourself. That's the first person. Now, a lot of times people say, well, if you're dealing with yourself, that's, self-centered and that's egotistical, blah, blah, blah. Listen, love yourself. That's just like putting on the emergency mask first.
Yep.
Because if I love myself, if the people around me aren't happy, I'm not going to be happy. So that means that if I'm making myself happy, I'm going to make them happy. So the first place you go to is really looking at yourself, being aware, noticing. And if you don't get a committed partner, get somebody that's going to tell you the truth. Okay? And what you do is you say, okay, listen, I'm going to give you about 15 minutes to tell me the truth. After that, you can't. Only 15 minutes, and I'm going to forgive you for whatever you say. And after that, I'm not, you can't say nothing else. Okay, because people want to get carried away. Like, well, you did this and you did that. And oh, and remember that time? And then they start thinking and go, oh yeah, no, 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 no. Your 15 minutes up, baby. That's it.
Love
when
that.
you can when you can consciously allow yourself to be vulnerable, nobody can hurt you because you chose it. You said that. You said, okay, I'm going to be vulnerable in this moment and I'm going to allow you to say whatever that you see. And I know that you're doing it in the spirit of loving me, you love me, and I'm not going to be hurt by this. So you can put up your dukes, you can put up your armor, you can close your shields, you can do everything that you need to do to fortify yourself so that you can hear whatever they have to say, right? And then you can have a discussion about it. You might say, well, can you give me an example of that? Can you tell me when that happens? Because a lot of times we don't know. We don't even know, right? And so once we can see that, when you see me doing that, can you just give me a Coke? Don't tell me I'm doing that. Just say something like ice cream. And then I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I get to think about it. I don't need you thinking about my business, like, you know. And so, you can have a committed partner listen to you. So I'd say the first thing is to forgive yourself, love yourself. Get a committed partner, somebody that's going to be with you and you guys can do it together so that you can see and notice these things about yourself. And once you can see that, then you want to look at you want to most people what they do is when they start creating they look at what they don't want
Ah.
and they start saying okay, well, I know I don't want this and I know I don't want that. Not as it's not about what you don't want, because the moment that you say don't, you're putting it in your life so that it's not there. And, I don't want to have somebody here, but well, you have to have that somebody there so that you can don't want them. So you don't want to say don't anything. You don't want to not have something because then it's got to be there so that you can continue to not want it. Okay. So you want to look to see what, if I don't want this, what do I want?
Mm.
What do I want? And trust me, you will keep going back to, well, I want this, but I don't want, just stay on what you want. Write it out, look at it, see it, and look to see if it's logical to you. If it's not logical to you, all it's going to be is Disney. We love the Disney movies. We love the animations, okay? And we can create things on top of I want to have this and this is what I want for my life. But yeah, but listen, that duck gets that anvil dropped on his head, but it gets up and it runs again. Life is not like that. When stuff is over, it's over. you know. So you want to look to see what can you accept Because you know, some people out there, well, I want a wonderful man that he's rich and he has a plane and all of this. Okay, you get one. Now you got a man who's never there because he's always in business. Hello, I was there. I did that. I created that. I chased a man for 8 years because he was a multimillionaire and he went I was all over the world, going here, going there. Trust me, you don't want that. You want whatever you want. If that's what you want, that's fine. But you have to know that whatever it is you create, there's something that's going to go with it.
Absolutely.
And then you can't say, "Well, I don't want." Well, okay, what do you want? It's always about what you want. And then when you really get what you want, create a statement for it. Create an easy statement for it. Create something that you can say every day. You know, I would tell you to write it down and put it, but see, the thing about it is when you write things down and put it on walls, pretty soon it just becomes just part of the landscape. Okay. So what happens is not just a part of the landscape, but you're going to have to take some actions on it. So whatever it is that you do, you put it out there and you create some statement, make a determination that you're going to take actions on it. And it has to be scary actions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Love that.
Yeah,
Thank you,
love that. All right. And one more person that has a question for you, and we're gonna end. Oh, and Jackie, we'll see. Hold on. Okay, Renata, go ahead.
So thank you, Novella, for sharing your story with us. Very inspiring. And as we were talking a lot about forgiveness and the power of forgiveness, I think it was never so important to talk about that, especially in this turmoil that we are living in. So my question for you is, it looks like it's easier to forgive people that hurt us, but it's much more harder to forgive ourselves. And I would love to know what is your advice for people to take this courage to look at their eyes in the mirror and say, I love you and I forgive you.
Thank you so much for that. That's very I say thoughtful because it's like you know, thought provoking. It's you know, you given it some thought. So thank you so much for taking the time to do that. Um, you know, so the thing that comes up for me is I remember when you say that about, you know, it's difficult to forgive yourself. And I think that closer, like it's difficult to forgive your family too and yourself. So I went to this, you know, this training program that I said that I did. They had a forum, the first forum in South Africa in, I think it was in 97 or 98. Okay. And I challenged myself to go there as a volunteer because this was like 4 years after apartheid. And I was like, you know, we were having women from South Africa, they were coming and we were, you know, helping them and, you know, and they really wanted their country to, you know, to grow and thrive. And they were, you know, calling their white counterparts, you know, I'm just saying like this is my mentality then. Their white counterparts, my brother. They would say, my brother. No, this is my brother. Why would I? You know, people were like, well, we thought that you would, you know, like retaliate. And it was like, why would that? That's my brother, you know. And I'm like, how is it that they can do this in 4 years and it's 100 years and we still got this conversation of slavery? What's happening? I want to go here and find out. And so I got an opportunity to go and it was a whole thing. And another time I'll tell you it was really I created a trip to South Africa and in 2 weeks, and I didn't even have a passport when I started. So that'll be another time. That'll be another time. Okay. But we get to South Africa in this forum. I knew that I was going to hear, like, I knew I was going to hear the answer because, you know, in these forums, people talk and they say what's so, right? So the first day of the forum, the South Africans, the Black South Africans, they weren't speaking. They wouldn't talk. and the forum leader couldn't do anything. He couldn't get them to talk. Yeah, I didn't understand that. And then the forum leader also told us when before we left, they told us they got it was four black women. They told us to stand in front of the door when the people left so that they and don't get out of the way so that they would have to go around us, you know. And so I didn't understand that either. And they said that particularly the white men get in their way. I was like, okay. So, got into their way. I didn't understand any of that, but I'll tell you. And so anyway, the next day, they had these letters that they had to do. So the next day they came in and this one guy, he stood up. He was Afrikaans. That's the white South Africans. That was the Dutch part of Dutch settlers. And then he started talking and he said, I wrote this letter, and what I did was I apologized, and I apologized for apartheid. And he said, and it's not something that I did. And he talked about how he was a little kid and how he played with this one little black kid. And at some age, his grandfather came and snatched him away and said, you do not, play with them. And so he said, and he had felt so bad that entire time because this was his friend. And he went on to share about that. And he apologized and he said, it's not for anything that I did, but it's for what I didn't do. And I am so sorry. And I'm telling you, it was not a dry eye in the house. Everybody was boohooing. And after that, honey, you couldn't get them South Africans to stop talking. They was talking. They had the little click going on back when they talked. You was like they was telling it all, right? And so this was the thing. It was, I tell you, it was story after story after story. But this one particular story, this woman, she talked about how she had been at working at a house and the woman had kept her over because she didn't iron the napkins just right and it became dark and she got caught out after hours and they had to have passports to get back and forth and she got caught and she couldn't get away from the soldiers and the soldiers caught her and they beat her and they raped her and they threw her in a trash can or something that was filled with glass. And then she said she got out of that glass and she went home and she crawled home. And when she got home, she said her mother pulled her in the house and gently took her and embraced her and gently picked out each piece of glass and put salve on it and just took care of her. And once she had gotten all of the glass out and once she had been soothed, she said her father threw her out and said, you must leave. You can't stay here. You're defiled. You can't. And she said, I have forgiven those soldiers. I have forgiven all of that. And she said, not until this program did I forgive my father. She said, I have not spoken to my father in 7 years. And I was, so it really pointed out to me and let me see that that was one of the things, like we can forgive a lot of things, like, outside of things that may not touch us as much. But when it comes to something like that, to that degree, that we can't, it's really hard for us to do. It's hard for us to let go of. But in that instance, she was able to let go of it, and she was able to have a conversation with her father for the first time in however many years.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. You have been, once again, a magical guest. Thank you, Novella, for just coming and sharing yourself with everyone. Um, Jackie had to leave, but she said, I want to get connected to Novella.
Oh.
And I know every one of the podcast hosts want to get connected to you. So please make sure you put your information in the chat.
Yeah. And let me just say too that the book that I wrote, F That,
Yes.
It's really a workbook. I started writing a book about this long story, all of this stuff, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of the book, I was sharing with somebody of something. So I said, could it be this simple? And I had been having a really difficult time sharing, forgiving my sister because a lot of stuff happened at my mother's death. And I, as much as I knew that I had to, and I really was trying to, I couldn't. And then I said, what if it's just this simple? And so I was sharing with somebody else, and I just said it. And I said, you know what, after we get off this phone, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna do this. And so, and it was just words. I forgive, da da da. Da. And I it wasn't in that whole thing of, feeling it and all of that. It was just simple. And then I said, well, I'm gonna sit down, and I sat down and I got ready to do it. And you know how when you can think of something and you can pull that thing up?
Mm.
It wasn't there. And I kept going, wait, and I was like, oh my God, I done accidentally forgave my sister. And at that moment, I stopped writing that book and I started writing a workbook. I was like, this is easy. And I started forgiving everything, everything, everything. And it really is a simple process. It's not, and if you see my book, it's playful. It's like really a playful cover because I wanted people to get that it's not difficult to forgive. We have it be that it's difficult,
Oh, yeah.
but it is 2 words. I forgive.
Mhm. I love it. And that you just focus on that and forgive it. There's, we have to actually bring it to our minds. And a lot of times
You don't.
when
You
you,
really
when you,
don't.
oh, you don't? Really?
No, you say, I forgive. Seriously, try it.
Okay.
I forgive. If you go through the workbook and see, there's a lot of places I tell you, if you write it out, there's
Mhm.
lots of places to write things out. You feel something, you get, and just don't harbor on it. Don't even think about it. When you think about it, write it down, right? Then go back and just say, I forgive so and so for saying this. I forgive so and so for this. You don't have to even you don't have to feel the feeling. It's amazing. It happens. And then it goes away. Just try it and see. It's amazing.
Beautiful.
And that's the reason why I stopped and I started writing that book, And so thank you for giving me this opportunity saying that because you really don't. Just try it. Try it out.
Okay. So, yeah, absolutely. Please put your information so that they can get the book. Please put that in the chat before
I
we
would.
end so everyone can connect with you. Okay. And thank you. Thank you, everyone. What another amazing episode. Beautiful. I love these episodes because we get to really and truly connect with people all across the world. Um, and we find out they're not much different than we are. Our minds all are, we're women, and we all have the same things happening in our lives, and we all have amazingness in our lives. And so I just want to say to everyone that's watching this, please contact one of us on LinkedIn. We're all over on LinkedIn so that you can be a guest on our podcast and share your story with many, many women across the world and inspire them to come and be our guest. So thank you again. And guys, if you love these episodes, please subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and share it everywhere. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And let's have a thriving week. Bye.
Thank you so much, Carol.